Frederico Fusille Finally Feels Good by Nanny Linda. Frederico Fusille was a very irritable, grumpy, unhappy young man, and his mood had been this way since he was 10 years old, when his dad had first made the plan to change their lives by leaving Italy, where they lived in a little town just outside the city of Rome, emigrating to England for a new life with new prospects and a new home. Frederico's father, Luigi, was a master baker by trade, and the plan was to join Luigi's brother in England. So finally all necessary plans were made. And eventually a thriving business was created, baking pizzas, bread, pastries, cakes, and so much more. And the customers were always queuing at the Fusilli bakery door. Frederico hated his new life, hated his new school, and hated his new home. He also hated the English weather and missed the city of Rome. He was angry with his father and sullen most of the time, even when his father was happy that the business was doing fine. Frederico promised himself he would return to Italy to live, and that was his biggest plan, and he couldn't wait to grow up and become a financially independent man. Days, weeks, months and years passed by, and Frederico worked hard and eventually took over the family trade. His baking skills were excellent, and he had a head for finance too, so good business deals were always made. But Frederico still moaned about everything: his work, his home, his life. So he didn't have a girlfriend and would probably never have a wife. He moaned when he was baking in his kitchen, grumpy with the staff, never ever smiling, and no one had ever heard him laugh. He moaned about the customers and the suppliers in the trade. He never had acquaintances, and no friends were ever made. He moaned when he went out shopping. He moaned when he was in the bus queue, and he moaned while he was sat in church in the very dusty and comfortable pew. He moaned when he went to the doctor. The dentist had an earful too, about how much they were charging him for what little they had to do. He made a huge fuss in the library and was politely told to shush, but he still kept on moaning and groaning, even if it was in a hush. His shoulders were always drooping, just like the sides of his mouth. Grumpy old Frederico Fusilli, he was known as roundabouts. One day Frederico realized that if he sold his bakery shop, he would be able to return to Italy, and that altered his mood quite a lot. He smiled as he walked to work the next day. Some people were giving him very odd stares. Frederico Fusilli was smiling. That had caught them unawares. He actually said a good morning as he passed by some neighbours that he knew. They just stood their mouths wide open, stuck to the spot like glue. When he opened the shop, he was smiling, thinking about his great new plan, and he started singing while working in the kitchen. Who was this strange happy man? His staff thought he had gone loopy, been drinking or a similar vice. Frederico Fusilli was smiling, even singing and being quite nice. Word soon spread about Frederico, and that day the customers' queue grew and grew, until Frederico realized he should have finished work but was still baking at 2:30. Frederico paid a visit to the estate agent and had an appointment with the manager at his bank, and had thought to himself what nice people they were, and left them with a thanks. He went shopping and treated himself to his favourite meal, and bought snacks and a chocolate bar, and smiled and thanked the assistant, actually calling her a star. Frederico felt as light as a feather, never having felt this way before. Some people were not as bad as he thought, and some even nicer for sure. That night he telephoned his cousin Enzo, who lived in his hometown just outside of Rome. He wanted to know how everyone was, and how was his lovely old home. Enzo was surprised to hear from him, as it must have been more than 20 years since Luigi and little Frederico Fusilli had left in floods of tears. "I'm planning on coming home," said Frederico in an excited tone. "Why would you want to do that?" said Enzo. "Isn't England now your home?" "None of the family now live here. They all travelled to pastures new, out into the world to make their fortunes, just like your dad and you." After a long phone call, Frederico said his goodbyes with promises to keep in touch. Enzo had been pleased to hear from him and had enjoyed their chat very much. Frederico sat and pondered. His plan had just been blown away, but somehow he didn't feel unhappy if in England he had to stay. It had now finally dawned on him just what a fool he had been, always so angry with his father, always being so mean, never making an effort or giving situations a chance to work, always being so negative, being a real stupid little jerk. People were actually friendly, helpful and understanding too. If only he had opened his eyes sooner and believed what his father already knew. So a new plan formed in Frederico's head, that he would keep the bakery alive, as he really enjoyed the work and the company and the income that it did provide. He liked to chat with the customers and to the assistant in the store. He liked to chat with the doctors and the dentist's assistant even more. "What a waste of my life always moaning. What a waste of my life being a bore. But I certainly have learned some lessons, and I know I will never be poor. I do know how to be happy, and I do know how to be nice. Why, oh why didn't I listen and take my father's advice?" He knew that one day I would get it. He knew that one day I would see that being an unhappy, grumpy and irritable man would turn out not to be me. Thanks, Dad, for believing in me, and I'm so sorry more than you will ever know. I will make it up to everyone. I will be a happy person and grow and grow. So life got even better for Frederico, and he visited the dentist several times. Even though he didn't have a problem, the dental assistant was very kind. One day he took her some donuts, another day some freshly baked pies, and when he learned it was her birthday, he made a cake for her, which was nice. One day he felt really courageous and asked her out on a date as he was walking past. She said, "Finally, Frederico Fusilli, I thought you would never ask."